CEO hears janitor speak. 9 languages, what he does next leaves the whole office stunned. She was just mopping the lobby floor, blending into the background like elevator music, when Dwayne Johnson heard her. Most people at Hallberg International barely noticed the cleaning crew, not out of malice, just habit. They arrived after hours, pushing carts, emptying trash, wiping down tables. Faces blurred into the backdrop of late-night office buzz. It was Monday morning in downtown Fort Worth, Texas. The main lobby pulsed with the usual rhythm, shoes tapping against tile, people clutching coffees like lifelines, thumbs flying across phone screens. Dwayne Johnson, the CEO, was halfway through his brisk walk from the parking garage to his 18th floor executive suite when something stopped him, dead in his tracks. A voice. But not just any voice. This voice was sharp, fluid, rolling through, a language he hadn't heard since his last trip to the company's Shanghai office. Mandarin. It sliced through the lobby's hum like a sharp chord in a symphony. Dwayne froze. Not because it was Mandarin, but because of who was speaking it. He scanned the area, expecting to spot one of the international sales reps, maybe someone from the Shanghai branch visiting early. But no, his eyes landed on her, a woman in a burgundy janitor's uniform, her hair pulled back into a neat ponytail, standing by the touchscreen directory. She was mid-conversation with an older man in a navy jacket and thick-rimmed glasses, a man who looked both confused and visibly relieved. Her tone was calm, her gestures smooth, as she pointed the man toward the elevators. Dwayne's brow furrowed. He recognized her vaguely from his late nights at the office. Polite, quiet, always moving quickly through the hallways, avoiding eye contact unless spoken to. He didn't even know her name. But here she was, translating effortlessly, explaining building logistics with the confidence of a seasoned concierge. He stepped closer, curiosity nudging him forward. Just as the conversation in Mandarin wrapped up, she pivoted to a delivery, man holding a clipboard. Without skipping a beat, she switched to Spanish, giving him clear instructions. "Sí, gracias," the delivery man murmured, grateful and impressed. Dwayne was still trying to process this when she turned to yet another person, a vendor puzzled by a set of mislabeled boxes. "C'est la salle de conférence B, à l'autre. Côté," she said in flawless French, her finger lightly tapping the directory for emphasis. Dwayne's jaw tightened, not in anger, but in something heavier, a pinch of guilt, perhaps. He'd spent over 2 decades leading global logistics, overseeing international expansions, hiring translators, setting up cross-cultural training. Yet here, in his own building, was a woman with more linguistic fluency than most of his top executives, pushing a mop just 2 floors below. He stepped closer, no longer just curious. He was intrigued. "Excuse me?" he said, voice steady but tinged with disbelief. She turned to face him, startled but composed. "Yes, sir," she said, her tone polite, professional. "That was Mandarin, right?" Dwayne asked. "Yes, sir," she replied. "And Spanish, French?" she nodded. "Also Portuguese, German, Arabic, Italian, Swahili. And I can read Latin, though I don't count that one." Dwayne blinked. "You're telling me you speak 9 languages?" "Yes, sir," she said, her voice steady. No hint of arrogance, no flash of pride. Just truth, spoken plainly. He stood there for a moment, silent, as the realization set in. In front of him was a woman he had never really seen before, a woman who, every night, cleaned the floors beneath his feet, and who now revealed herself as a walking United Nations. "What's your name?" he asked finally, his voice quiet. "Denise Atwater," she answered. A new thought flickered in Dwayne's mind, something he hadn't expected to feel when he walked into that building that morning. "Miss Atwater," he said, stepping forward. "Are you free for a few minutes?" Her brow arched slightly. "Now?" "Yes," Dwayne said, holding the elevator open for her. "I'd like to talk to you in my office." She hesitated for a split second, more out of habit than fear. Years of being overlooked and underestimated had taught her caution, but then, with a subtle nod, she stepped into the elevator. As the doors slid shut, a quiet tension filled the space, and Dwayne Johnson, CEO of a global powerhouse, found himself feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time: anticipation. As the elevator hummed its way up to the 18th floor, Denise stood quietly, hands folded in front of her. Dwayne glanced at her, taking in the calm expression, the quiet poise. He was used to boardrooms filled with confident voices, but there was something different here. "I've worked here for 13 years, she said softly, her eyes fixed on the rising numbers of the elevator panel. "Never thought I'd be invited up here." Dwayne gave her a small smile, just a subtle upturn of his lips. "You might be surprised how quickly things can change." Neither of them knew just how much was about to shift. The elevator chimed, and they stepped out onto a floor that smelled of leather and citrus, the subtle scent of wealth and power. As they walked down the polished hallway, Dwayne's assistant glanced up, wide-eyed at the sight of Denise beside him. He gave a small nod to let them through, no explanations offered. Inside the glass-walled office, Dwayne gestured toward a chair. "Please, sit," he said, settling into his own seat behind the massive desk. Denise lowered herself cautiously into the chair, her hands resting in her lap. Her eyes moved slowly across the room, taking in the world map dotted with colored and pins, the framed photo of two young girls on a side table, a tray with neatly arranged espresso cups, and an award-gathering dust from a trade conference in Brussels. She wasn't impressed, just observant. "So, Denise," Dwayne leaned forward slightly, folding his hands on the desk, "I'll be honest, I didn't expect to have this conversation today." She gave a small nod, her posture still, her face unreadable. "But I just heard you speak 3 languages like you were flipping light switches, and I need to understand, how does someone like you end up here, cleaning floors?" For a moment, she was silent. Her gaze drifted to the window, then back to him. "You got time for the truth?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "I wouldn't have asked otherwise." She sighed, rubbing her palms together like warming her hands before speaking. "I was born in Toledo, Ohio. Only child. My dad was a pipe fitter, my mom a nurse's aide. They didn't have much, but they worked hard. Education was their religion. I got a full ride to Kent State, majored in linguistics. I was halfway through a master's program when my mom got sick." Her voice softened. "I came home to take care of her. Then my dad had a stroke 6 months later. Everything fell apart." Denise's eyes flickered as if rewinding her memories. "I had a baby, no money, and no partner who stuck around. So I did what I had to. Grocery stores, nursing homes, temp jobs. Eventually, a custodial supervisor here offered me night shifts. It let me pick up my daughter from school, pay the light bill. That's how I ended up here." Dwayne listened, silent and attentive, no interruptions. "But the languages, I didn't stop learning," she said, her voice firm. "I borrowed textbooks, listened to recordings, read newspapers in 5 different languages to stay sharp. It's what I do. The only thing that makes me feel like I still matter." Her voice didn't waver, not rehearsed or poetic, just plain and honest. "Most people never ask," she added, her lips pressing together. "They see the uniform and assume." That last word lingered in the air, thick with unspoken weight. Dwayne leaned back slightly in his chair, feeling a tightness settle in his chest. She cleared her throat. "Look, Mr. Johnson, I'm not saying this to make anyone feel bad. I'm not bitter. Life happened. I did what I had to do. I still do. But you asked. That's the answer." Dwayne exhaled slowly. Denise Atwater was brilliant. That was clear now, but she wasn't asking for pity. She wasn't even asking for a handout. She was offering the truth. Clean, clear, and quietly heartbreaking. "You ever think about doing something else?" he asked finally. Denise gave a small shrug. Sometimes. But it's hard to dream when your rent's due. Silence stretched between them. Heavier this time. Dwayne reached for his notebook, jotting down a few quick lines. "What are you writing?" she asked softly, curiosity barely edging into her voice. He looked up, a thoughtful smile playing on his lips. "Ideas," he said. But what he didn't say was that one idea in particular was already taking shape in his mind, a plan that could change everything for both of them. Dwayne Johnson couldn't get Denise out of his mind. All through his meetings that day, budget reviews, vendor calls, even a lunch with a potential investor, her voice echoed in his head. The steady, fluent cadence of her Mandarin, the warm roll of her Spanish, the precise rhythm of her French. It wasn't just the languages themselves, it was how effortlessly she'd woven them into the everyday. That kind of fluency didn't just happen. It took years of discipline, of curiosity, of heart. By mid-afternoon, he found himself restless, unable to focus. He stood at his office window, looking down at the city below, thinking about Denise Atwater. Finally, around 3:45 p.m., he made a decision. He left the executive suite, rode the elevator, down past the familiar polished floors, down to the building's service level. The air down there was warmer, thicker, with the sense of cleaning supplies and machinery oil. He walked through hallways lined with utility carts, stacks of bottled water, and scuffed walls. Finally, he reached the janitorial supply room. Through the open door, he spotted Denise. She was restocking shelves of microfiber cloths, her movements efficient and precise. "Mind if I bother you again?" Dwayne asked as he stepped inside. Denise turned slightly, surprise flickering across her face. "You came down here," she said. He offered a quick smile. "Couldn't stop thinking about our talk." He shifted, his stance, his voice lowering just slightly. "Listen, I have a favor to ask." Denise wiped her hands on her shirt, cautious. "What kind of favor?" "There's a meeting upstairs. A group from the São Paulo office arrived early, and our translator cancelled last minute." "Could you help?" Dwayne asked. Denise hesitated only for a moment, her mind calculating. "Portuguese," she confirmed. "Yes," Dwayne said. "I can do that," Denise replied. Minutes later, they were in conference room 4C. 4 Brazilian executives sat awkwardly, scrolling through their phones, their body language tense. Denise stepped in quietly, nodded politely, and then began speaking in smooth, confident Portuguese. Dwayne watched as the room transformed. Shoulders relaxed, expressions softened, conversations picked up. Denise didn't just translate. She bridged gaps. When one of the Brazilian visitors cracked a joke, she returned it with a laugh that had the whole table chuckling. Dwayne couldn't understand the words, but he understood the connection. 20 minutes later, the meeting wrapped up. One of the executives turned to Dwayne, impressed. "She's better than anyone we've worked with this year," he said in English. "Where'd you find her?" Dwayne glanced at Denise, who was already clearing the table of empty coffee cups. "Right here," he said simply. Back in the hallway, he caught up with her. "You ever do professional translation before?" he asked. She shook her head. "Just helped out in hospitals, government offices, things like that. No certificate, no time for school. My daughter needed me more." Dwayne nodded, a hint of admiration in his expression. "And where's she now?" Denise smiled softly. "She's 26, a nurse in Tempe, paid her way through school, stubborn like her mama." They both chuckled quietly, the weight of titles and hierarchy slipping away for a moment. They were just two people, sharing a story. Back on the service level, Denise clocked back in. She still had 2 more floors to clean before her shift was over, but before she turned away, she said something that made Dwayne pause. "I didn't do anything special today," she said. He raised his eyebrows, genuinely surprised. "That's not how it looked to me," he replied. She offered a small, knowing smile, and then turned to finish her shift, leaving Dwayne standing there, a quiet realization dawning in his chest. That night, as he sat in his car, parked in the lot of Hallberg International, Dwayne thought about everything. But the pressure to expand, the endless discussions about diversity and inclusion, the search for new talent from every corner of the globe. All the while, the gold had been right there in his own building, quietly pushing a mop, speaking 9 languages. And in that moment, a question settled in his mind, heavier than any boardroom debate or investment strategy. What was he going to do about it? The next morning, Denise's badge beeped at an unusual hour. She had just finished wiping. Down the east lobby, when her supervisor, Ron, tapped her lightly on the shoulder. His expression wasn't irritated, but it wasn't exactly casual either. "Hey, Denise," he said, voice low and hesitant. "Mr. Johnson wants to see you again." She blinked, confused. "Did I do something wrong?" Ron shook his head. Quickly, No, he didn't say. Just told me to send you up." Denise wiped her hands on her towel, straightened her shirt and followed the same familiar path as the day before. But this time, something felt different. As she made her way through the building, people she passed seemed to notice her. Heads turned. Whispered words floated behind her like the hush of a breeze. A receptionist offered her a polite smile, the kind that suggested she knew something Denise didn't. When she entered the executive suite, Dwayne stood near the window, a cup of black coffee in hand, gazing out at the city skyline. "Come in," he said, his voice even but carrying weight. Denise stood by the door until he turned to face her, his expression thoughtful, his posture more relaxed than formal. He placed the coffee cup on a coaster and folded his arms. "I've been thinking," he said slowly, "about wasted talent. About how many people never get a shot, not because they're not good, but because nobody ever looks twice." Denise stayed silent, her skepticism sharp. She'd seen promises before, heard speeches that went nowhere. She wasn't one to trust. "Easy praise. I want to create a new position," Dwayne continued, his tone clear and steady. "A role that doesn't exist yet, but one that this company badly needs, even if we didn't know it." Her brow furrowed slightly, confusion mixing with guarded caution. "For what?" "Cultural liaison for international affairs," he said. "Someone who can speak the languages, read between the lines, handle visitors, vendors, contracts, all the global touchpoints we're constantly fumbling through." Her mouth opened slightly in disbelief, but no words came. "You're qualified," Dwayne added. "Honestly, probably more qualified than most of our leadership team. And you've already proven you can handle it, with grace, with patience, with brains." She stared at him, her gaze narrowing. "This real?" "As real as it gets," he assured her. "I don't have a college degree," she pointed out, her voice quiet but firm. "You have something better," he replied. "Lived experience, commitment, fluency in 9 languages. You think I care?" "About a piece of paper." Denise shifted her weight from one foot to the other, uncertainty flickering behind her steady expression. "Why me?" she asked, her tone edged with genuine disbelief. Dwayne held her gaze, his voice dropping. "Because I watched you solve 3 problems in 3 languages before 9 a.m. yesterday. And because I'm tired of walking past people like you. People doing twice the work for half the credit." She crossed her arms, a reflex of caution. "You know what people are going to say," she warned. "I don't care," he said simply. They stood in silence, the moment thick with unspoken truths. Finally, Denise let out a slow, measured breath. "I've never had an office job," she admitted. "Never had a title." "You'll learn fast," Dwayne promised. "I don't even have a wardrobe for this kind of thing," she said, a half laugh slipping into her voice. "I'll have HR send a clothing stipend," he said with a quick nod, a faint grin tugging at his lips. "You thought of everything, huh?" she said dryly. "I'm trying," he admitted. A long pause stretched between them. Then she asked softly, "What about my shift downstairs? Who's going to replace me?" "We'll find someone," Dwayne said, his smile genuine now. "But no one can replace you." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Denise glanced down at her hands, then back at him. "You sure this isn't some kind of favor?" He shook his head, his expression firm. "This is overdue recognition." Her eyes glistened, but she blinked the moisture away before it could fall. "All right then," she said quietly, her voice steady. "Let's see what I can do." Dwayne extended his hand. She took it, but this wasn't just a handshake. It was a rewriting of the rules, a breaking of unspoken boundaries. What neither of them could have predicted, though, was how the rest of the office would react to this unexpected shift in power. By Wednesday, the office buzzed with whispers. Denise Atwater, the janitor, had been promoted to an executive-level position. The news spread faster than the elevators themselves. No one knew the full story, only fragments of gossip. That she spoke a bunch, of languages, that Dwayne Johnson himself had chosen her, that maybe she had some secret background, maybe even something tied to government work. The speculation bounced from cubicle to conference room. Some people were curious, some offered quiet smiles and murmured, "Good for her." But not everyone was thrilled. In the staff lounge, two marketing assistants leaned in close over their salads. "I'm just saying," one whispered, eyes darting around. "I've got a master's in international business and have been waiting 2 years for a promotion." "Last week she was scrubbing urinals," her friend added with a shrug. "Maybe she knows something we don't," the first woman murmured, skepticism lacing her tone. "Oh, please," her friend scoffed. "It's just Dwayne trying to look progressive. Check a box." That same undercurrent of quiet resentment rippled through the company. Boardrooms, Slack messages, water cooler conversations. People weren't used to upward moves coming from outside the usual corporate ladder, and Denise felt it the moment she stepped into her new office on the 12th floor. It was modest, just a desk, a plant, and a computer she hadn't touched yet, but to her it felt like another planet. When HR finished onboarding her, Denise asked if she could keep her night uniform. Not to wear, she clarified, just to remind herself where she came from. That afternoon she met Victor, the head of international operations. He walked in with a clipboard and tight eyes, his posture stiff. He didn't offer a handshake. He didn't sit. "So you're the new liaison," he said, his tone dry, almost mocking. "That's what I'm told," Denise replied calmly, her voice even. "You have experience in corporate environments?" he asked, his words clipped. She smiled faintly. "Only from the outside looking in." Victor didn't laugh. He dropped a thick folder of reports on her desk. "I've got reports from Italy, contracts from our Dubai partners, and an entire vendor issue in Sao Paulo." "Think you can manage that?" Denise stood, her posture steady. "I'll need a few hours to review, but yes." Victor said nothing more. He turned on his heel and left without another word. Later that night, Dwayne stopped by her office. "How's day one?" he asked, his voice light but with genuine curiosity. Denise exhaled, leaning back in her chair. "I've had worse," she admitted, a small smile playing at her lips. "Victor, give you a hard time?" Dwayne asked, his tone knowing. "He doesn't scare me," she replied simply. "I figured," he said with a chuckle. A pause stretched between them. Then Denise's voice softened, almost hesitant. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything," Dwayne said, his posture relaxing against the doorframe. "Why now? Why me?" she asked quietly. "You could have just given me a bonus and kept moving." Dwayne's expression turned thoughtful. "Because I saw myself in you," he admitted. She raised an eyebrow. "You were a janitor." "No," he said with a shake of his head, "but I was overlooked. A lot. I came from nothing. My dad fixed cars in a town nobody visited. I worked 3 jobs through college. People thought I didn't belong in rooms like this." Denise nodded slowly, the weight of his words settling over her. "Now you're the one deciding who gets in." she said quietly. Exactly, Dwayne replied, his voice low. There was a beat of silence before Denise looked down at the thick folder on her desk. I'll be honest, she said, her voice softer now. I'm nervous. Good, Dwayne said, offering a reassuring smile. That means you care. She looked up at him. There's going to be people who hate this. They'll get over it, he said, or they won't. Either way, we're moving forward. Dwayne straightened, his expression resolute. You got a story, Denise, a real one, and now you've got a platform. He left her office with those words lingering in the air. Denise sat back in her chair, looking around her new space. She remembered the years she'd cried in bathroom, stalls during lunch breaks, the nights she'd come home with aching feet and just enough energy to microwave a can of soup. She remembered the promotions she'd watched go to people who didn't even bother to say good morning. She opened the drawer of her desk and placed her old janitor badge inside, not to forget, but to remember, because this story wasn't just hers anymore, and the spotlight was about to get much, much brighter. By Friday morning, the company-wide email had landed in every inbox. It was short, clear, and carried the unmistakable weight of authority. Dwayne Johnson himself had sent it. The message outlined Denise's new role as cultural liaison for international affairs. It didn't frame her promotion as a charity move or a feel-good gesture. It was simple and direct. Denise was the best person for the job, period. That didn't stop the noise, though. Some managers grumbled under their breath, muttering about favoritism or PR stunts. Others watched quietly, waiting to see if she would sink or swim. But as the days passed, even skeptics had to admit, Denise was good. She navigated conversations with foreign clients better than any software program could. She caught mistranslations in old contracts that had cost the company thousands. Her ability to read between the lines, to pick up on cultural nuances that others missed, saved Halberg International from more than one misstep. But Denise never showed off. She simply did her job, quietly and efficiently, better than anyone expected. On Monday, she was invited to a high-stakes meeting with a delegation from Morocco. The company's North African expansion had been stalled for months, bogged down by miscommunication and mistrust. Denise walked into the room wearing a soft beige blazer, her posture steady, her face calm. She greeted the Moroccan representatives in fluent Arabic. The shift in the room was immediate. Shoulders straightened, eyes focused, voices softened. It wasn't just the language, it was the respect. After the meeting, one of the Moroccan partners approached her privately. He placed a hand over his chest, a traditional sign of gratitude. No one has ever done that for us, he said quietly. Not in our language, not like that. Denise nodded, her voice soft but certain. You matter, that's all. Midweek, Dwayne made another bold move. Without fanfare, he had the plaque outside the company's main training room taken down. In its place, a new sign was installed. The Atwater Room. There was no big announcement, no ribbon-cutting ceremony, just a quiet, powerful shift that meant more than flowers or cake ever could. Later that afternoon, Dwayne stood outside the newly named Atwater Room, watching as a fresh group of interns filed in for orientation. He overheard one of them whisper, "Who's Atwater?" A senior staff member answered softly, "She's the one who reminded us that greatness doesn't always wear a suit." That same day, Denise returned to her office and found a sealed envelope on her desk. No return address, just her name handwritten, in block letters. Inside was a simple note. It read, "I used to think I'd be invisible forever, but today I stood a little taller because of you. Thank you." No signature, no fanfare, just proof that people were watching and that someone out there had been inspired. Denise sat there for a long moment, staring at the note, her throat tightening. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. That was the moment she realized this wasn't just a job. It wasn't just about a new title or a better paycheck. It was about opening a door, one that had been closed to people like her for far too long. But even as she felt the shift, Denise knew not every door stayed open without a fight. Already, someone was preparing to push back. Late Thursday afternoon, the call came. Denise was summoned to a meeting, not by Dwayne, but by someone higher up. Eleanor Craig, a senior board member who had flown in from Dallas, wanted to see her. Eleanor was a fixture at Hallberg International, a woman with sharp suits, an even sharper tongue, and a reputation for brooking no nonsense. Denise wasn't surprised, but she felt her pulse quicken as she made her way to the 17th floor. The conference room was smaller than she expected, with sleek glass walls and a long table gleaming under recessed lights. Eleanor was already there, a stack of papers in front of her, tapping her pen rhythmically against the table. She didn't look up when Denise walked in. "Have a seat," she said briskly. Denise sat, hands folded neatly in her lap. Eleanor glanced up at her with a cool, appraising stare. "So, Miss Atwater," she began, voice like the crack of a whip, "I've reviewed your file. You have no college degree, no previous corporate training, no management certifications." Denise met her gaze without flinching. "That's correct," she said evenly. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. "You were a janitor here 3 weeks ago." "I was," Denise said calmly. Eleanor folded her hands on the table, her voice laced with skepticism. "Help me understand how someone with your background is now handling high-level international affairs." Denise took a slow breath, then spoke, her voice steady. "Because I speak the languages, I understand the cultures. I've already fixed 2 vendor contracts and cleared a 3-month delay in our Morocco deal. I also helped secure a verbal agreement with our Brazilian partners that legal is finalizing next week." Eleanor's lips pursed slightly, a sign of discomfort. "You think this company should be run on instinct and charm?" Denise allowed herself a faint smile, her tone unwavering. "No, ma'am. I think it should be run on results." For the first time, Eleanor hesitated, the sharp edge of her authority blunted by Denise's quiet confidence. "I don't need to be liked," Denise added, her voice low but firm, "but I do need to be useful, and I am." Eleanor said nothing, her fingers drumming against the table. Then she stood abruptly and closed the folder with a decisive snap. "You're a gamble," she said coolly. "I'm used to that," Denise said quietly. "My entire life has been one." The meeting ended without further words. Denise didn't return to her office right away. Instead, she walked out of the building and found a bench across the street. She sat down, looking up at the glass tower of Hallberg International, at the building she had walked past so many times, head down, in her janitor's uniform. Now people saw her, and not everyone liked it. She pulled out her phone and called her daughter. "Hey, Ma," her daughter answered. "Everything okay?" Denise hesitated, listening to the familiar voice that had always grounded her. "Yeah," she said softly. "Just needed to hear your voice." "You sure?" her daughter asked, concern lacing her tone. "I'm sure," Denise said. They talked for a few minutes. Nothing heavy. Just groceries, her daughter's dog, a new movie she wanted to see. But the laughter in her daughter's voice steadied her, a quiet reminder of why she had fought so hard. When they hung up, Denise sat for a few more moments, breathing in the evening air. Then she stood, squared her shoulders, and crossed the street. By the next morning, word of her meeting with Eleanor had spread like wildfire. And to everyone's surprise, Denise didn't back down. She showed up early, took the lead at a team meeting, fielded a call with the German office without missing a beat. Calm, sharp, unbothered. That same day, someone scrawled a message on the whiteboard outside her office. No name, just 3 simple words. "We see you." And for the first time in a long time, Denise felt truly seen. In the weeks that followed, something remarkable happened. People started coming to Denise, not just for translations, but for guidance, advice, even a bit of quiet confidence. Interns would stop by her office, asking for tips before big presentations. Colleagues who once barely acknowledged her now lingered at her door, seeking her perspective. And Denise never talked down to anyone. She offered insights with humility and patience. One shy intern, Bao, once asked, "How did you learn all those languages?" Denise smiled, her voice warm. "One word at a time, same way you will." She wasn't just doing her job, she was changing the company's culture, one conversation at a time. One afternoon, Dwayne joined her for coffee in the break room. He leaned against the counter, sipping his cup. "Been hearing good things?" he said with a hint of pride. Denise took a sip of her own, her expression calm but amused. "Been trying to ignore the bad ones," she replied. "You're making waves," Dwayne observed. She looked at him, a glint of curiosity in her eye. "That a good thing?" he grinned. "Around here, it means you're doing something right." For a moment, they stood there in comfortable silence, two people from different worlds, connected by the simple truth that potential often hides in plain sight. "You know," Dwayne said thoughtfully, "I've been considering launching a training program, something that focuses on internal talent, especially folks working in roles like yours used to be. There's probably more Denises in this building." Denise nodded slowly, her mind already whirring with ideas. "There. Ah," she said, "they just haven't been seen yet." He turned to her. "Want to help me build it?" A slow smile spread across her face. "Already started in my head," she said. By the end of the month, the pilot program launched. Voice Inside, they called it, a new initiative designed to give workers across departments access to language training, leadership mentoring, and visibility. It was Denise's idea, and it caught fire. Eventually, she was invited to speak at a logistics leadership summit in Cincinnati. She stood on stage, facing a crowd of executives in sharp suits and polished shoes, but she didn't tell her story. Like a polished speaker, she told it like it was. "I was never just a janitor," she said simply. "I was fluent, I was capable, I was ready, but nobody ever looked long enough to see it. So the next time you pass someone without a title, ask yourself, what are you really missing?" The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. And then it erupted into applause. On her way out, a young man approached her, tears in his eyes. "My mum's a housekeeper," he said quietly. "She speaks 5 languages. I used to be embarrassed to say that." Denise placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Don't ever be ashamed of where you come from," she said softly. "The only thing to be ashamed of is staying blind to brilliance." As she walked away from that stage, Denise Atwater stood taller than she ever had before, not because of the applause, not because of the promotion, but because she had brought her whole self to the table. And in doing so, she opened the door for others. Now that you've heard Denise's story, ask yourself, how many hidden geniuses have you walked past today? How many brilliant minds have been overlooked just because they didn't fit the mold? Denise's rise wasn't just her victory, it was a wake-up call for all of us. It's a reminder that brilliance doesn't always come wrapped in a suit and tie. If this story made you feel something, if it made you smile, made you tear up, or made you just a little bit angry, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, drop a comment below, and hit that subscribe button to keep these powerful stories coming. Let's lift up the unseen, the underestimated, the ones who remind us that greatness can come from anywhere. Because in a world where so many voices go unheard, it's time we start listening.